I'm so excited to do this reading vlog. You guys have no idea. Because I'm finally reading the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. I have been putting this series off for the longest time now, but finally the first 3 books came up off hold on Libby, and I took that as a sign that I needed to just finally read this series. If you don't know what Libby is, it's an app that you can download that allows you to check out ebooks and audiobooks from your local library. It's amazing. I use it all the time. That's how I get most of my books. I'm personally somebody that can't buy the first book in a series without knowing if I even like it. So that's where the library is incredible, because I can at least get like a taste of it before I fully commit. Let's be honest, the Cosmere is really intimidating by Brandon Sanderson. There's a lot of books. Some of them are extremely long. I'm talking 1,000+ page books. It's a big commitment to jump into, which is why I've been putting it off. And I'm sure a lot of other people have been doing the exact same thing, just pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. But I hear people raving about how good these books are and raving about the entire Cosmere, and I have FOMO. I do. I need to understand why people are talking about it as if it is like the holy grail of fantasy. And as a fantasy lover, I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice by not reading more of his books. I've only read the Skyward series and only the first 2 books in that series so far, and I know that it's separate from the Cosmere. And I wanted to vlog the entire experience though, so that way if some of you are curious about the series, really unsure, you're on that fence line, that hopefully however I react can either convince you to read it, ideally, or maybe to take it off of your TBR. As always though, everything is spoiler free and primarily reaction based. I want you to go into these books not fully knowing exactly what's going to happen, but just having a good idea of the premise and the vibes. Okay, hype myself up. Let's go. So I'm taking a little break on the day and decided to come out to the garden. Decided to just be absolutely out of control with how big and just unruly it has gotten, because look at my green beans right now. I am 5'8". These things are massive. Like actually so crazy. But I am gonna pick some to hopefully have for dinner tonight, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So some updates on Mistborn so far. I'm about 32% of the way into the book as of right now. The first part is really just setting up everything for the story. You're starting to understand the world that we're in. You're getting glimpses of the magic system. Although I have come to realize that now into part 2, I'm getting a clearer idea of what magic is. The magic system is based around metals, and different metals give you access to different types of magic. And not everybody has access to all of them. Copper, or they can use pewter, or iron, or steel, etc. Mistborns are those that can use all 10 of the metals. I believe that there's 10. You have 2 different sets of populations within this world and within this story that I think is important to know. So you have the Ska, which is essentially commoners and those living within poverty and get used essentially as slaves. And then you have the noble class, and those are obviously those that are higher up within rankings and look down upon the Ska class. It's important to know the difference because the Ska and the Ska Rebellion play a massive role in the story that is happening within Mistborn. Also important to note with the nobles that they typically are the only ones that have access to the magic in this world and to use allomancy. But if nobles mix with Ska, then you get Mistines as like a half-breed situation, and they sometimes can have access to those metals. And then you get Mistborns who are able to use all of the metal functions and are essentially extremely powerful. Super interesting concept. I haven't read a story where the use of metal gives you access to magic. It's quite honestly kind of a lot to wrap my head around, because at times I'm like, okay, how are you flying through the air and using like physics to, I don't know. That's the thing. I'm trying to explain it to you all, but it's also slightly confusing to me. Realizing that when you're trying to explain something to everybody else, that then you start to question if you actually understand it yourself. I'm like, why does it seem like my brain's clicking more when I'm reading? But now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, is that correct? I don't know. To make it simple, metal gives you access to magic. We have two different perspectives within this story. We have Vin, who is our female main character, and then we have Kelsier, who is our main male character that we're following. Vin is 16 years old, and she is overcoming this traumatic upbringing, really, with having an abusive brother that then abandoned her and left all of his debts for her to figure out how to settle. And so she's had to join these criminal crews to thieve and steal and do all of these things in order to try and gain her freedom, in a sense. Within that, she's so lost because she's never really known how to trust anybody, how to live a life that's not shrouded in fear, in a sense. To follow her thought process through the story so far, I think she's such an interesting character and very complex. Kelsier, our main male character, is older. He's like in his 30s or something like that, and he's essentially the leader of this ragtag criminal group, and he is a Mistborn, and he apparently survived called the pits, which is where you get sent when you've done something against the Empire. When you get sent there, it's like a death sentence. You're not coming back. But he escaped, one of the only people to ever escape these pits. All these scars from it. People essentially look at him with like awe because you escaped a death sentence. He has this sway within the criminal groups that I think a normal criminal lord would not have. Also an interesting character, but I feel as if he's got a lot of secrets and things that he doesn't really disclose. For obvious reasons, this man was betrayed, so why would he do that? He's come up with this plan to try and overthrow the final empire. That is essentially like what the plot is of this first book. A lot going on in this book, and so I'm having to really lock in and reread sentences and make sure that I'm grasping everything that's happening. I'm gonna go lock back in and read some more. I'm about 50% of the way into Mistborn. Within part 2, we're watching Vin become more acquainted with her ability to use the metals, and you're seeing how fast she is grasping all the knowledge. Is it normal for somebody like herself, who would be so early on in their Mistborn journey? It's almost making me wonder how the dynamic is going to shift between her and Kelsier, because I have this feeling that Vin is going to be incredibly powerful. Maybe that's not shocking at all, especially when I've read so many like destined prophecy characters in fantasy books. Really liking how Vin is tasked with portraying a noblewoman. She's supposed to be this niece to this lord that's working within the rebellion, going to these balls, trying to gather information. In this part of the book, we've also met somebody called Elin Venture, who is the heir to the Venture House, which is one of the biggest great houses, biggest noble family with the most influence within the Final Empire. And I have a feeling that something is going to happen between him and Vin. I don't know, maybe this is where I've just read so many romantasy books and you can just start to kind of foresee a potential love interest. At least I hope so, because it feels forbidden and I love that. But there's just something about his personality and the way that he's portraying himself and the way that Vin almost slips out of her role as playing a noblewoman when she's talking to Elin, and you see the way that she's like, this is the most I've ever felt like I can be myself, and I feel so normal and it's natural when I'm around him to talk and to discuss things. I think Vin has a crush. It's so cute. But I feel like it's gonna be so not good. Not good for the cause of taking down the Final Empire. So, don't like that. One of the biggest things that I'm thinking about at the moment, and a possible theory, is that I'm wondering if the headers to every chapter, I think they're called like epigraphs or something like that, is from the Lord Ruler. There's just been like parts where the information seems to line up with what we know about the Lord Ruler before he went through his ascension. A lot of theories and thoughts going on in my head right now, and I'm probably gonna be so wrong on like all of them, but I feel like I'm onto something here. I cannot get over how beautiful the sunset is tonight. It is just the perfect reading backdrop right now. 75% of the way done with this book. I feel as if it's taken me an eternity to get to this point though. I don't know how to explain it. I'm really enjoying Mistborn when I'm reading Mistborn, but I don't find it being a book that I am reaching for when I'm thinking about starting to read. I almost have to like talk myself into it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I do really like this book. But that might explain why I finished 2 other books while reading Mistborn. I don't know, this book is taking me like a week to get through, and it's like 500 something pages, which is not that much, and I feel like I should already have it finished. Should I be trusting Kelsier? Because I don't at this point in the book. There's just been a couple of things that have happened, and I'm not going to exactly say what those things were and where the turning point was when the alarm bell started to go off in my head, because that'd be a little bit of a spoiler. Oh, there's just been some calls that he's made where I'm like, I don't know really what your motive is here. Is it self-serving? You keep saying that it's not, but it's feeling a little self-serving. Aside from Kelsier though, can you imagine if marathon runners could burn pewter? The world record for the marathon would be like 5 minutes. Endurance athletes would be having a heyday burning this metal. One of the biggest things I've noticed in this part of the book though is just how much Vin has changed from when I first started reading. She makes this quote, "Don't forget the ash because you see a little silk." And something about that resonated so much with me, and I think is also just so applicable to real life, is not forgetting where you came from to get to where you're at right now. But she's doing a lot of other things and really utilizing her ability to burn metal the way that she can. She's a little vicious, a little violent. Honestly, I love that for her. I have 25% left of this book, and I feel like things are really gonna pop off. Am I gonna be left on a cliffhanger? Mistborn Book 1, Era 1 is complete. And you know what? I think I'm into the Cosmere. I think I'm ready to really embark on this journey. I do think I'm probably gonna take a slight pause from reading this trilogy just because I have a few other books I need to get to in September. Kind of overcommitted on some arcs, but I'm really, really interested to see where this trilogy is going to go. I feel like Vin is gonna be on the hunt to find this well of ascension that we see mentioned throughout this story. There's just some things that the Lord Ruler said at the very end of the book that I feel like is setting up for the rest of this story. And I'm really excited to see where that's going to take us. I love books, and especially series that really take us on a journey, and what you think is going to be the main objective morphs and changes as the story progresses. That will make more sense if you read this first book. I don't necessarily want to elaborate on it too much, but thank you all for coming along on this vlogging reading journey of this first book. I actually feel like it really held me accountable to read this first book in a somewhat timely manner, but I did it. I finished it, and I actually did end up really liking it. I think I mentioned it around the 75% mark, is that I didn't find this as a book that I was reaching for, but once I picked it up and started reading, I was really into the story. I think the main reason is because I am a mood reader. If I'm not in the mood for that story, it's harder for me to fully lock into it and like reach for that book. But like I said, once I picked it up, I was fully invested into the story and the characters, and found myself really tearing up at the end because she always wanted a daughter. Man, that part. Wow. I actually read that part while I was working out on the bike and started to tear up, and my husband was like, "Are you crying while working out right now?" Yeah, I am. Thank you, sir. Mind your own business. I'm excited to go on the rest of this reading journey. I will be taking you all along with me when I get to it. Until then though, happy reading, friends.